And now joining us now in studio to further unpack some of the important issues faced by the ICT sector is Adil Nchabeleng, who is an advocate for universal access to broadband digital services and has been closely following developments in the sector one. A very good evening to you, sir, and thank you so much for joining us here at NN7 Prime.
Thank you, Lucio.
And now, just to explain to us, what is the ICT white paper and how is it relevant to the industry at the moment?
Look, the ICT white paper is actually one of the watershed piece of legislation hopefully to come into effect. It has really aimed high. It's got high objectives as well as interest to actually liberate the current communications and ICT space and spectrum particularly. If you look at the current ICT space and the spectrum issue relating to issues such as data, it's highly, highly controlled and is quite monopolized. Few players actually are controlling the space, and as such you have ICT as well as ICT SMEs struggling in this field and space. They don't have direct access in terms of ICT, particularly on services, on creation of entrepreneurships, which provide themselves and actually can self-service. So the bill itself, which has actually been published in the Gazette, will help and go a long way in liberating and creating a very highly mobile enterprise environment, whereby small players can enter into the space. You have, for instance, broadband, which is the current driver for most services today. It's not accessible. It's only controlled by currently fixed operators as well as mobile operators. And in between and few, you find independent network operators that can provide available services. So I think the bill is one of the critical, important bills, and we congratulate the Minister for really having made this inroad to look at the bill and look at the entire broadband spectrum issue and look at how we can actually make data and data-related services accessible to the people.
And now, the white paper is also referred to as a springboard to the future. And what's the reason for that?
Look, currently, if you look at massive the industry, the internet technology, internet has changed the way we're doing things. Today, if you look at the internet and the internet-related, they call it Internet of Things. Everything you do today, it starts with your mobile phone. It connects up to all the other devices that you have in your hemisphere and environment. For instance, your car is an internet-based technology and device. It communicates, it's got GPS, it's got all sorts of communication-related, technologies and devices. Your home itself, your television, your internet as well in terms of your workspace and environment. Mobile workers, all of that is being affected today. And as a result, if you don't have a regulatory environment and infrastructure that is able to actually entertain all of these areas and not relate it into a fixed environment or just a mobile environment regulatory space, you're going to have a challenge. So the bill itself is indeed one of the most brilliant watershed bill that has been created, because at some point people were losing hope in terms of the Department of Postal Services and Telecommunications. But now with this new bill that has been introduced, there's now a hope that things are going to change. And the reality that we're dealing with, which is really digitalization of everything today, is going to become a reality if this bill is properly implemented. So the excitement and really what I foresee in the future is now young people, which are mainly youth, students, people coming up, children in education, people into the elderly services, middle class, as well as the people on the ground, which are now currently excluded. People in rural areas do not have such access to mobile technology and mobile communication. Why? Because data is still the most expensive commodity within our environment. If you make that accessible, you make that available to the people, you have actually improved people's lives. Technology is the driver for economic development, and we support this move by the Minister, by the department, and by government, really in making sure that they can actually look at the regulatory framework and in order to make sure they can actually deregulate the currently highly regulated environment. It's going to cost a little bit of stare around the GSM operators, which is the mobile operators, but apart from that, it's really the right move in the right direction.
And now, is it true that the ICT sector is largely white and exclusive?
Yes, mainly the beneficiaries and the users of it has been largely white and exclusive in the sense that mainly the owners of major ICT-related technologies and enterprises and SMEs have been those with advantage. What does it take to have advantage? You must have access. You must have the technologies and the tools and the basic support required. Most of these things is currently still sitting in the predominant few and concentrated in the hands of a couple of 2 to 3 GSM operators, and then the rest of them have to share amongst themselves. It's an unfair environment for competition. It does not provide for development of any infrastructure as well as a highly geared, innovative and technology-based environment. We are saying that this must change, and this bill must usually address this kind of issues. If it doesn't articulate itself around how ordinary people can use technology to improve their lives, and they do not have to move from where they are. They can reside anywhere in the country, and they can have high quality, valuable services that are driven by the digital spectrum and technology. And data itself can be affordable and can be cost effective. In a sense, it must be cheap. It must be available to the people, and it must not cost them a fortune.
So you're saying that data must fall?
Indeed, data must fall, but not in a fall in a free sense. It must still maintain its value with regards, but it cannot be sold at the price levels and the inhibiting factors that is currently being done at. You know, the introduction of the bill is it must use spectrum for public good and for public access, not spectrum to be used for commercialization of services and technologies and exclude the largest population, which is currently under the 80% of our population, which is mostly poor, to be excluded out of this particular digital divide. So we are saying that spectrum must be accessible, must be made accessible to the general population. And people on an ordinary lives can start doing things that makes their lives easier. E-government services must be applicable, must be accessible for our people. And people should be able to improve their lives wherever they are, independent and irrespective of location or geographic, point of view. We believe that education can be made accessible if the internet can be deregulated from the current monopoly-based economy. Things such as basic services that are government-related must be accessible as well. So it's not really an unfair request that data must fall in a sense, but not in the sense that data must be made just as a valueless commodity. There has to be some value derived out of it, and businesses should exist, but within a reasonable manner. But it must be cheap. People must access it.
And now, how confident are you that this will sail through Parliament and become a South African law?
By the way, South African citizens have demonstrated in the past few weeks and months as well that they have a formidable force as ground-root people. So if you were going to looking for a mass upheaval of saying certain things must happen, it's about time that does happen. Government cannot keep making promises and not delivering for the people. People must get what government has promised. The digital divide cannot continue at its current trajectory. I congratulate the minister for the approach of attending to this issue by saying that let's relook at the environment. Let's come up with a policy that talks of new ways and innovative ways of making everybody be part of this. If you're looking for a wireless open access network where everybody else can converge and utilize it on a wholesale level, regulated properly between state as well as private users and private wholesalers, it's a much more better model rather than just having a fixed environment where licenses are given to a few in exclusion of the majority. So that's really what it has done in this case. And yes, I mean, mobile operators are not going to be happy about it for the fact that they are going to lose some kind of a control over a particular aspect of spectrum. Data today, which is broadband-based, fixed network as well as mobile network access, is a major commodity. And it's one of the drivers of profits within the mobile as well as the fixed line sector operators. Telcom, the likes of the MTN and Vodacom are all dependent on the particular delivery of data as a service. But then the law says that now they must actually co-share that particular spectrum with the new entrants and new SMEs.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing with us this important message that you have about these ICT. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.